Is Rebel Moon Part 2 The Scargiver worth watching? Absolutely. Let's dive deeper into it. This movie picks up right where the first film left off, with our band of unlikely heroes facing even more intense challenges as they fight against an oppressive regime. It's a wild journey that takes you deeper into the complex world of the galaxy's struggle for freedom. This movie takes us even deeper into the breathtaking world of Korvax, filled with incredible planets and dangerous enemies. Our heroes face their toughest challenges yet as they confront the looming shadow of war. But who are they up against, and how will they push forward in the face of overwhelming odds? Keep watching to find out. Rebel Moon Part 2 The Scargiver is definitely the better movie between the two. The first one set everything up, which really helped make this one as great as it is. The sequel flies by even though it's only about 2 hours long, which is pretty short for an SN movie. But it's a good sign that the movie feels so fast-paced because it means I was hooked from start to finish. One thing I liked more in this movie as compared to the first one was the actors' performances. The heroes had more screen time, so we got to know them better. The intense battles really tested their acting skills, and they all did a great job. Rebel Moon 2 takes a lot of inspiration from Akira Kurosawa's classic film Seven Samurai. In Rebel Moon, we follow Korra, played by Sofia Boutella, who's a tough hero living in a small village. Her village is under threat from the evil Imperium, and this starts a journey for Korra as she seeks warriors to help her fight back. Snyder isn't shy about talking about his influences. He loves Kurosawa and Star Wars, and he's managed to blend those inspirations into the story, giving us an epic adventure that nods to the greats. So if you're looking for an exciting journey with incredible battles and a strong hero, Rebel Moon is definitely something to check out. In Rebel Moon Part 2 The Scargiver, Korra, played by Sofia Boutella, and a group of revolutionaries face off against Admiral Atticus Noble, played by Ed Skrein, and his Imperium Legion. They thought they'd already defeated Atticus, but his unexpected resurrection has set the stage for another intense battle. This time, Atticus is in control of his massive dreadnought, the King's Gaze, which makes him an even more challenging opponent for the rebels. Korra and her team need to strategize carefully to take down Atticus and his forces. As they prepare for the fight, they know they have to confront a stronger, more ruthless enemy than before. Korra's team has to deal with high stakes and new challenges in Part 2 as they try to protect their home and stop Atticus once and for all. They face intense battles and dangerous missions as they work to overcome the enemy's advantages. In Rebel Moon 2, the story continues with Korra and the remaining warriors preparing to give it their all. They stand with the brave people of Velt, fighting to defend their peaceful village, which has become a new home for those who lost their own while battling against the Motherworld. As the big battle approaches, the warriors must confront their own pasts and share why they're fighting. This moment of truth brings them closer together and strengthens their resolve. Surprisingly, my favorite part of Rebel Moon Part 2 is actually the first act, which was the calmest moment of the film. During this time, we spent a lot of time with characters, and that's where I became emotionally attached to each one of them. It was nice to see the group interacting with each other and mixing with the villagers. One of my favorite moments in the movie was an early scene with Sam. She had a beautiful moment that I won't spoil, but it made me feel closer to her as a character. We also got to see the villagers working together, and this is where Snyder's visuals really shine. Now, I know some people don't like slow-motion scenes, but it's what you expect from a Zack Snyder movie. There was a lot of slow motion in this film, but I loved it. I've always been a fan of slow motion, and Zack is one of the best at it. There were so many stunning shots, from them cutting down wheat to big explosions. Zack just knows how to make slow motion look amazing, and for me, it added to the film. There were also some incredible shots in the flashback sequences and in the present-day scenes, making the film even better and more visually engaging. But it wasn't just about the visuals. There were many great moments with the characters too. One of the pros of Rebel Moon Part 2 The Scargiver was definitely the story. Sometimes movies get so caught up in the action that the story takes a backseat, but this film struck a good balance. While it does have some issues, the story stays front and center, and the action serves to move the story forward. It wasn't just action for action's sake. Everything tied into the plot in some way. The story included some twists and surprising moments that I didn't see coming, which elevated the movie from a typical sci-fi battle to an emotional fight. I appreciated the added backstories for all the main heroes because it gave us solid explanations for why they were there and who they had become. Korra's story in particular surprised me a lot. I had a general idea of what to expect, but there were plenty of surprises that kept me engaged. I'm glad it wasn't just a run-of-the-mill sci-fi battle. The twists and turns kept me on the edge of my seat. What really helped Part 2 is that they filmed it back-to-back with Part 1, so there was a consistent flow and continuity between the two. This made it feel like one big continuous story rather than two separate films. I was amazed that the budget was only $80 million because there was so much CGI and special effects, and it looked fantastic. I saw the movie on the big screen and I would have noticed any major bad shots, but there weren't any. The CGI was impressive. Regarding the dreamland Snyder used, it worked better in this film than in Part 1. The fast-paced action scene suited the lens well, and since the movie mainly takes place on the desert-like planet Veld, the hazy blur at the top and bottom made sense. Moving on to the score, Tom Hulkenberg created a strong soundtrack for Part 2. The music in Part 1 was nice, and this film also had great pieces. One highlight was the piece called Quick Hatch in the first act, which helped build momentum for the battle ahead and subconsciously got me hyped for what was to come. Overall, the music really added to the pacing of the movie. When watching Rebel Moon Part 2 The Scargiver, one character that I think might be underrated is Nemesis. She doesn't speak much, but when she does, it's worth paying attention. Her journey over the two movies was interesting, but I wish we could have spent more time with her. I felt there was more to her story that we could have uncovered, and I wanted to know more about her. Another character I felt we didn't see enough of was Jimmy. Reading the novelization of Part 1, I found there was a lot more of Jimmy's story in the book that wasn't in the movie, which will probably be in the director's cut. In Part 2, I was hoping for more of him as well, but he mainly appeared in the action scenes as the trailer suggested. The small movements we did have with Jimmy before the battle were nice and made me feel more connected to him. He's such a fascinating and cool character, and not spending more time with him felt like a missed opportunity. Since the runtime was only 2 hours, I think most people would have been okay with spending an extra 5 or 10 minutes getting to know Jimmy better. Hopefully, the director's cut will give us more time with him, but for now, I'm just judging the movie I saw. What I really loved about Rebel Moon Part 2 The Scargiver is how we can clearly feel the director's vision in the movie. It has personality, and that's something I really appreciate in films, when you can sense a distinct director's touch on what you're watching. That was definitely the case with this movie. Because of that, I give this movie an 8 out of 10. I genuinely enjoyed it and think many of you will too. Overall, Rebel Moon Part 2 The Scargiver is a must-watch if you loved the first film. It wraps up Korra and her team's journey in a satisfying and impactful way. The mix of action, drama, and character development makes it a standout movie. If you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend checking it out. And that's all for this video. If you've hyped for the sequel, give us a thumbs up and subscribe for more movie updates. Let us know in the comments what you're excited to see. Thanks for watching. See you next time.